What's for lunch? We'll check the menus in the dining halls at UVM, where a student-led movement is cooking up some changes. Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Simpson. Students at the University of Vermont are getting the chance to weigh in on food choices on campus. It's part of an initiative at colleges nationwide to give students a voice in their school's food purchases. For UVM and its students, the goal is to develop a food system that is local, organic, humane, and fair. Rebecca Gollin has the story from campus.
A revolution is on the table at the University of Vermont. It's a food revolution that aims to change the foundation of how and what food is available, not just at UVM, but at colleges and universities around the country. It's a student-led movement called the Real Food Challenge.
The Real Food Challenge is actually a national campaign to shift money out of conventional food budgets into more of the food economy that reflects our value as a green university.
Annalena Barrett is one of the students at the forefront of the Real Food Challenge at UVM.
Yeah, because I mean, we're 20% real by 2020, but that could look a lot of different ways.
The main goal of the challenge is to shift 20% of the university's food purchasing to what the group has defined as real food by the year 2020. With an annual budget of $7.5 million, 20% of UVM's food budget will amount to an estimated $1.5 million a year.
The four categories that define real are humane, ecologically sound, fair trade, and local. And each one of those categories has a million qualifiers and disqualifiers, and we actually audit all of the food purchasing that we do and come up with a percentage of our annual budget that is spent on those categories.
Students then run those numbers through a series of calculations on a food calculator, which is provided by the national organization.
The Real Food Calculator is an online tool, and the way it runs is students here at UVM go through the invoices that Sodexo provides to them, and basically they just assign whether they're real food or not, and then the total of purchases gets added up, and then the percentage that is real food gets broken down by different categories, like which product category they fall into. Is it baked goods? Is it local produce? Is it meat? And it also gets broken down by what our percentages are for each of the four categories: local, humane, fair trade, and ecological.
While those numbers are still being crunched for recent semesters, the group estimates that UVM is around 13% real food now.
With any grassroots initiative, momentum has to build. And so in the
Jane Kolodinsky is one of the faculty members involved. She says that changes that seem small can add up. One example is grilled cheese, one of the top sellers on campus. It's now made with Vermont organic bread and Cabot cheese, qualifying it as real food.
Reaching 20% by 2020 sounds like an easy task, but it's really difficult. Getting to the first 13 or 14% is going to be relatively easy. It's always those last few percentages that are really hard to obtain.
We're serving about 10,000 meals a day, around 5,500 students that live on campus, and another 5,000 of off-campus students and the university community, faculty, staff that come through the dining locations each day.
With that much food going out, prioritizing where changes can and should occur is a big task, and a collaborative one. The process is overseen by a Real Food Challenge working group that brings all of the partners together.
We get all of the stakeholders involved, faculty, staff, students, and dining service workers, all around the same table. So if the students have an idea like, oh, we would really like to, transition to all local yogurt on campus, then dining services has a way to sort of look at what they do for purchasing already and see, is that an easy switch? Is that a really tough switch? Why is it hard? So everyone is sort of aware of the challenges to any step that we are trying to work towards.
Last year with being crafters and for, to continue to
In order to get a full grasp of the food preferred by the UVM community, the working group enlisted a research methods class to collect data on student preferences for real food. This year, they're implementing changes based on that information.
We do an analysis each semester to look at where we're at and what we want to target. We have a real food working group and a steering group that looks at what qualities of food are most important to pursue in terms of the Real Food Campus commitment, such as with beef, for instance. We feel that looking at humane may be more of a priority than local, because local beef may not be available in the quantity that we might want to pursue. So different characteristics for different potential food products. Produce, we're looking at local first, and trying to move that forward, and then potentially organic second.
UVM was the 5th school in the country to sign the Real Food Campus commitment in 2012. Now, nearly 40 schools have signed the commitment, and over 120 are running the calculator. And those numbers are growing every semester. Institutes of higher education have a $5 billion food budget. Shifting 20% of that purchasing would equal $1 billion.
It's a big goal, but it's an achievable goal, which I think makes it a good goal.
With goals in place, this food revolution will come about. One real food at a time. In Burlington, I'm Rebecca Gollin with Across the Fence.
Well, thanks, Rebecca. Well, the implementation of the Real Food Challenge at UVM is coordinated by a group of students, faculty, and staff that's known as the Real Food Challenge Working Group. And joining me now is a member of the working group, Professor Jane Kolodinsky. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So there's a lot involved with this Real Food Challenge, obviously, but one of the main things that jumps out to me is sort of the economics of it all. Is having a positive effect on Vermont's food producers and our rural communities?
Well, I think it is having a positive effect on the Vermont rural food economy, because Vermont has many of farmers who have the characteristics that fit real food. Local, humane, organic, and ethical. And so right in our own backyard, we have the products that Sodexo can purchase in order to meet the Real Food Challenge priorities.
That must make it sort of easier to attain some of these goals.
Actually, I think that it is. And you tie that with the Farm to Plate initiative and Vermont's whole economic push towards our food system, and all the pieces begin to fit together.
Well, the goal is to reach 20% real food by 2020, and Becky's report indicated that UVM was around 13%. Has there been an update from that?
Well, it's 13%. It's inching its way up, and we all know that the last percentages are the hardest to obtain. And Sodexo, our food service provider, is working very hard to find those areas of food production that can actually nudge that percentage up so that we do meet the 20% by 2020.
What are some of the challenges associated with getting those final percentage points?
Well, when you look, you can think of the low-hanging fruit. So that if you purchase all your bananas, which are not Vermont, but could be fair trade, there are a lot of bananas sold in the dining halls. The same thing goes with what we saw in the video with grilled cheese. Those are one of the products that UVM sells a whole lot of, is the grilled cheese sandwiches. And so Sodexo is now trying to find those matches that will give us the, so to speak, biggest bang for the buck.
And so the work and interest at UVM in the area of food systems is bigger than just sort of the Real Food Challenge. What else has happened and is happening at UVM?
Oh, we have quite a long history now. I think starting in 2010, the University of Vermont chose food systems as one of its major initiatives, and we have faculty, staff, students working all together on the academic side of the house, and I think that that's really where it started, where we have research in production of food, demand for food, food and health, and so on. And now we're trying to weave in the student services side of the house, which involves food service and student choosing their food on campus. And so you have all corners of UVM coming together to make this work.
Are students surprised that they're being asked sort of what they want food-wise?
Oh, that's kind of an interesting question, isn't it? I think in the beginning they might have been, maybe 5 years ago, but now we know that demand drives production and production drives demand, and that's where we're at now.
And so tell me a little bit about another new development with Sodexo that was very kind of exciting that you wanted to talk about.
Oh, just yesterday I received a press release from Sodexo. So when we talk about the Real Food Challenge, we talk about local, organic, humane, and fair. And Sodexo has just made a pledge related to cage-free liquid eggs, because obviously they can't crack millions of eggs a day, but to source cage-free liquid eggs, to stop purchasing pork that was produced using gestation boxes, to stop using dairy and fluid milk products that were produced using artificial growth hormones, and to work with the dairy and beef industry to think about pain reduction and pain management on those procedures on cattle that might cause pain. So these are huge developments. And when you think about an international corporation taking these steps, these were conventional ideas just a few years ago, it really is innovative.
Well, they're really saying that obviously it makes economic sense for them to do this.
Yes, and we're finding out that indeed it does.
What are some of the other opportunities that students have? Because I know that there's the new farmer program, training program, which I thought was pretty interesting. It sort of takes it a step further, saying, well, this is all about locally sourced food. Here's how you can get involved and learn how it's done.
Yes, the new farmer program, and that's a cooperative extension program or continuing education program at the University of Vermont. They learn how to grow the food, produce the food, and indeed the Real Food Challenge is finding out that they can source some of the food from that UVM farm program.
And there are other initiatives that provide an opportunity to engage more students too?
Well, if we look at the academic side of the house, linking it with the student services side of the house, there was a research methods class that did all the research that led to the ideas of what Sodexo or the food service provider at UVM might have to do to satisfy students as well as meet the Real Food Challenge demands. In addition, we now have a food systems master's program, which is one of the first in the country. Next year we should have a PhD program.
Wow.
And right now we're developing an undergraduate major in food systems. So it runs from undergraduate to graduate studies, the academic side of the house to the student service side of the house. We're really walking the talk of food systems.
And this is a popular topic with people.
All across the country. As the video said, we were the 5th school in the nation to sign the Real Food Challenge, and now there are over 40. So it's nice to be a trailblazer and an expert in something that you're very good at, and that's Vermont and food systems.
And there are also some community partnerships too?
Community partnerships such as linking with the internships at UVM, where students can go out into the community to learn more about food systems. There are linkages with Cabot, and indeed we're using Cabot cheese in the grilled cheese sandwiches. So there are a host of possibilities for students to learn from the best and brightest food producers in the state in order to bring that information back to UVM.
Can you tell me a little bit about the food calculator and how that works?
Well, the food calculator is actually, it's an Excel spreadsheet where student interns work with Sodexo to look at all the purchases that have been made in a variety of categories. We can talk beverages, fruits and vegetables, dairy, meat, all the categories of food that Sodexo serves, and the student will go through all of the receipts and plug into the calculator what could be classified as real food, that being local, organic, humane, or fair.
Beyond the 20% by 2020, are there other aspects of this real food commitment?
You know, I think that's an interesting question, and I think back to it was a student demand and a student drive that started this. But think about students. They graduate in 2 years from the food system. Students are required to eat on campus. So this is an ongoing situation. Every 2 years we have to train students or sort of whet their appetite for real food. And I think what we're going to see is that's going to change in the future, because it was student driven now, and as our food service begins to provide this, maybe it will go the other way, and we will draw more students in because that's the kind of food system we have.
Well, if you'd like to learn more about UVM's Real Food Challenge, you can click on their website. It is uvm.edu/food systems. Then click on the link to Real Food Challenge. Again, the website is uvm.edu/food systems. Well, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
That's our program for today. I'm Judy Simpson. We'll see you again next time on Across the Fence.